Oakley Dokley. So, if the technology gods are on my side, then we should be live. So, guys, I'll just say, as a quick intro, welcome again to another one of these live streams. My name's Rob. This is Adeptus Psychonautica, where we talk about all things psychedelic. And today I'm honoured to be joined by sort of I don't know, like long distance. I think you're a bit of a long distance friend now, mate. But this is I'm here with Minty. Say hello, mate.
Hiya, folks. Hope you're all well. Hiya, Rob.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to be able to get talk to you like this, mate. Because I've been wanting to do this one for ages. Because I think since like the start of my channel, I think you were one of the first people who I kind of recognise as like popping up as like a regular commenter, and I just feel like we've sort of like got to know each other a bit over the time.
Yeah,
and then in sort of
I used to like to bet on horses that would look like winners, because yours was a really small channel, and in those days I used to go on the small channels, which I thought were going to become big ones, and I thought, so, and it looked like I was right. It's come quite big, hasn't it? I mean, you're almost snapping at the heels of cosmic consciousness with Jonas, aren't you? You're not far off him now, are you?
Yeah, well, I try not to think of it in those kind of terms, to be honest, mate, because there was one time I got really obsessive over like numbers and views and stuff, and I was just checking it all the time, and I was just doing my own heading with it. So now I'm just trying to stick to my own kind of sort of mission statement of just do the thing that I enjoy the most. And I think if you do that and put your own sort of like heart into it, then people will recognise that. And I think you see this all the time. When you see like your favourite movies or TV shows, and there's the bit where they're doing it out of their pure enjoyment for it, and then you can see there's like a transition into where they start doing it to try and get the big audience or get the big money or something, and that's where it always goes downhill. I think it's always best just to stick with, just stick with
No, absolutely right. And don't forget, you are the reason I've got my own channel, because if you remember, I was nagging you to do the eMesh video, but your schedule wasn't quite to my tastes, and that's why I made my own.
Well, good now. I think it's worked out champion like that, because your channel's awesome, and we'll get into all that in a minute, because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about that. Yeah. But I think I'll just explain to the audience first about, first of all, why I named this particular live stream Psychonauts in Disguise, and also why Minty's not got a camera feed. And it's because Minty's asked to sort of remain a little bit incognito, and I think this comes across in his videos. He's always kind of off camera. And
it's Mrs. Minty that's like always nagging at me. She doesn't even like me putting that little thumb. I don't know what I can't see Skype, but that little thumbnail you got up, like, she doesn't approve of that either, really. Oh, you can recognise you, look, it's you, and all this kind of. Well, if I go outside and I take my hat off, nobody recognises me.
Well, it's like I said, mate, behind every great man there is a great woman, and I think Mrs. Minty's almost been as much of a fixture of our relationship as you have. So
possibly, but your words are wasted. She's gone round the block now. She can't hear you.
Oh, well, she might watch it on the replay afterwards, just to make sure we don't do anything too.
Sorry, I interrupted. Carry on.
No, mate, I was just introducing the sort of the incognito bit. So. Is that like something? Is that because of just Mrs. Minty's kind of privacy concerns, or is that because of just like the situation in the UK where you feel it's a bit more on top than what it is for me in Switzerland?
To be honest with you, it's really just my wife. It's if anybody recognised me in the neighbourhood, I guess that that wouldn't be good. And also, like so many folks, I worked in a job where it wasn't really seen as a good thing to be messing around with psychedelics. So it's kind of that as well, really.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much chance of getting busted. It's just really keeping the wife happy, I guess, really.
Yeah, I think the same. But then every so often I find myself checking. It's like, am I being stupid here? Am I being sort of overly cavalier? But I think with the way that the tide's changing now, I think it's becoming not that big a deal with the way that sort of people are coming out, and it all seems to be getting more legitimised. So I think there's a bit more wiggle room, and plus where I live in Switzerland, it's a lot more sort of chill here than it is in the UK. So in some ways it is. I think around the sort of the drug culture, it seems like a lot more relaxed. In certain things they're a lot more anal about it, but this is I feel like it's something I could justify
Yeah.
But my first choice for this live stream, I was going to call it Grumpy Old Psychonauts. So I thought I'd play up to that thing. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing, because I think the thing with you and me is that we both got this very sort of like working class sort of English upbringing, and we've got this kind of very similar sort of kind of skeptical, sort of wary of bullshit kind of approach.
Yeah, possibly. Oh, definitely the bullshit. Yeah, there's a lot of that floating around, isn't there? You know.
But the weird thing is, with that said, we are in this world of just bizarre, bombastic psychedelia. I mean, how do you marry these two things up? Like, just the incredibly bizarreness of these experiences with the kind of the down-to-earth attitude.
What I try to do is I try and let folks. I mean, I'm kind of like a bit like you, but not on steroids in that way. You know, like you like to like grab them by the neck and shake them. I just kind of try and ignore them, but fail every now and then. Every now and then I see something, and I think, oh my God, I've just got to say something there. And yeah, maybe sometimes I have sort of said a few things on like Reddit, and also maybe even a couple of videos I've been thinking about making, which and maybe some in the future as well. But I could easily get into the point where I start challenging people who are making claims, shall we say, and basically asking them to justify the claims, because now I've got a few subscribers and I've got a few good views. I can say to people, if you can prove to me this is right, I'll try it for myself, and if it is right, I'll shout it from the rooftops. And not only that, I'll get my mate Adeptus to shout it too. And if they've got a genuine point behind it, who could say no to that? You see? So it's not what I like to say, but I kind of like you. I don't like the bullshit. What I consider to be like nonsense. But I try and leave people to the dreams as much as possible. You're fairly confident that most folks can sort out the wheat from the chaff a bit anyway, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think it's. I mean, for me, and I think it's probably the same for you. Like when you describe it as people's dreams, like I would not try and touch someone's dreams. Like, you know, that if someone's personal experience is their personal experience, and you know, God knows I have my own wacky interpretations of what's going on. But it's when people start getting authoritarian with it and start planting a flag and saying, no, it is this, and you need to believe this, or else, you know, and they trying to shut down other people's interpretation or claim it as some kind of truth, whereas I think that truth can't be justified. But a subjective experience is a subjective experience. Like a person can completely have, you know, if a person wants to say, I believe it's this and I believe it's that, fine, you go for it. But if you start saying, and you need to believe it too, I'm like, okay, mate, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. It's this word should as well. I'm not that keen on. People say I should do this and I should do that. You know, it's kind of like, it doesn't really bode well with me, that kind of people telling me I should do this and I should do that, really. Well,
it's antithetical to the whole kind of psychonaut thing. I mean, me and you will both remember that, you know, we just talked about psychedelics becoming more mainstream, but go back to the 80s and then, you know, this was like you were a freak if you took these things. You were you were playing rolling dice with your sanity. You were going to jump off a building. You were, you know, all these horror stories, and that's sort of changing now. But I don't like the kind of that kind of authoritarian angle. There's just something in me that kind of rebels against it a little bit, I think.
Yeah, maybe that's the way forward. I don't know. Like you say, it seems to be becoming a bit more acceptable. It does make you wonder. I mean, like a few years ago, you know, even just weed was really kind of like bad thought of. But now I'm walking around the neighbourhood, I smell weed from quite a few different houses, you know, and nobody seems to care in the least, you know.
Yeah,
maybe that's how it's going.
It's definitely going on. I think my kids are going to grow up in a world where, yeah, weed is just not a big deal at all. I mean, it's not a big deal here in Switzerland. They can buy it in shops and stuff like that. So I think give it a few more years, and I think weed's a done deal. Whereas when I was a teenager, I would have thought it unbelievable that would ever be legalized. It just seemed that it would, you know, it was just too much of a hurdle. And the fact that things like mushrooms and MDMA and stuff like that are going that way, it just seems like that just came out of nowhere to me. I was like, holy shit! I didn't expect this to happen so quickly. But it's a cool thing, I think, to see in my lifetime.
I know. I remember before 2005. I mean, I'm going to show my age here, but my first trip was in 1984. Or was it 5? I can't remember. So I know that makes me about 95 years old, but yeah, it was, my goodness, it was, and they were legal. There was shops selling them around our way. You could actually buy the damn things in shops. And we never did. We went round trudging around the fields and getting the Liberty caps and blowing our brains out. But yeah, it was, then overnight it became a Class A drug.
Yeah.
I mean, you could buy, it was, I don't know if there was any reduction in crime or reduction in anything really. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I don't know how the laws work, but
no, I think just a conservative sort of attitude of the 80s, I think, wasn't it? It was, I mean, it was all like the just say no era, wasn't it? And it just went across everything. But yeah, I mean, I think I first did psychedelics. So I must have been like 14, I think, and I did sort of LSD. So how did you get into all this, and how did it sort of transition into this kind of more? Because I guess there's a point where you're trying stuff and it's like recreational or experimental, and then we're in this more kind of, we call ourselves Psychonauts now. We're much more exploratory. But what was your kind of entry point into it all?
Well, it was when I was I was in my teens, or I think it was probably 19 at the time, and a friend of mine just said, and he told me all about mushrooms, and he said, "Do you want to try some?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go on." And the way he described it, I just thought it was a bit like a cross between like when people say to you, "Oh, if you drink a cup of coffee, it stimulates you." Now, I just couldn't tell any stimulation from coffee at all. So I thought it was going to be a bit like that. It was just going to be barely detectable. So we went trudging around this field and got a load of Liberty caps. We shared them out, and I had my dose and he had his. And this was in the evening. And he kept asking me, "Can't you feel anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I can a bit, And then all of a sudden it hit me like a train. I couldn't believe it. It's like my head had just exploded. Yeah. It was unbelievable. And I just couldn't believe the things it was revealing to me. I was just completely and utterly blown away. And then I had him again the next year, and that's when I had my very first bad trip, which was fucking horrendous. Mm-hmm. Then I had to pack in that kind of thing because my employer was onto me. And then it wasn't until a few years ago that I started thinking, because I'd left work and I thought, I'll try and find psychedelics again. And this was like the healing aspect and trying to sort things out in my mind. I mean, we all grow up with a bit of a past. I know you've mentioned it, and you know my history, a bit of it as well. And so I thought, well, I'll go and get some of this DMT lark, because I'd seen it on the web and the forums. But I was a bit frightened because it sounded to me like it was going to be all scary and intense and, a bit too much for me. So I instead grew some mushrooms, grew my own. I couldn't find. I walked till my legs had worn right down to my bum, all around the fields around here, trying to find mushrooms. Didn't find a single one. So I thought, damn it, I'll grow my own. I did, but then I thought, I'll just try DMT. But oh my God, I mean, you know yourself. I just love DMT. I just love it.
Well, I mean, that's DMT is just an absolute game changer because I kind of came up through sort of like LSD and MDMA and stuff like that, and I'd had some pretty trippy experiences, and as it happens, my first experience on LSD was a bad trip because. Just like what you described.
Oh my goodness! Your first one was a bad trip.
Yeah, but what happened was.
Tell us about that. Go
on, Go on. But what happened was, so I've got an older brother, and he's 3 years older. So whatever he was getting into, he would pass on to me, and so that's why I kind of got into LSD quite young. So one time he just gave me 2 acid tabs. He said, "Here, try one of these with your friends." So me and my friend necked this acid, and we're 14. My parents had gone out for the night, and we were just sat in watching telly. And then we chewed on this acid. No idea what to expect. Just didn't have a clue at all. And then suddenly my friend just stood up and just started like speaking in tongues, going like, and we just burst out laughing. We just could not stop laughing for ages. And then we ran out the front door, ran down the street, just going, just screaming, like just 14-year-olds just being absolutely completely off our tits. Anyway, then we calmed down and came back to Iris, and we were going to carry on watching telly. But in the time that we'd been out, my parents had come back in. So we got back to our house, and we were still dickering. And then my mate just dropped his pants and got his dick out and just started waggling his dick around, going, "Piss, piss, piss," or something. And my dad just opened the front door and said, "What are you doing?" And it just went boom. And we're like, the floor just dropped out from underneath us, and we're like, are I don't know. And he just said, Robert, don't mess around here. Go away. And we
Did he know you were tripping?
No, not at all. And he no idea. But in our heads, he knew. We were like, he knows. He's going to tell your parents.
Yeah, it gets like
and we
that,
just sledged. It was like, just turned into. We had like 2 hours of just sitting around like on the street in the dark, just like freaking out. But anyway, it didn't stop me from going back to it. And
that's a long time and all LSD, doesn't it? I mean, how long was that? That was a heck of a long trip about that, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was a good like sort of 6 to 8 hours. So I remember I was up like a good part of the night, just cowering, just waiting for my dad to kick me ass. But yeah, he had no idea what we're up to, which is just as good. And I doubt he would have been that arsed anyway if he knew.
I'm surprised you ever went back to it, with having that experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's the courage and the stupidity of youth. I can attribute that to. But when it came to that point of trying DMT for the first time, I mean, that is just so. I mean, I was so cocky going into DMT the first time. I thought, I know psychedelics. Listen, line it up. I'll sort it out. And then after that first conversation, I was like, holy shit, this is something else. And
yeah.
I mean, it's just.
So you actually managed a successful trip on your first time with DMT, did you?
Not a breakthrough, but still, it was more psychedelic than anything I'd ever experienced. I mean, so I had it, and I think so. I did like this sort of three hits, and this was using the oil burner pipe. And, yeah, and it just the room. I was still in the room, but it was just going bananas and just psychedelic imagery. All this like Mayan, Inca imagery was just started pouring out the walls and ceiling, and I just remember just literally my jaw was just on the floor like.
And how old were you then?
Oh, this is back in my early 30s.
Right, so fairly sort of not too long ago then.
I'm going to turn 44 this year, so it's been a while, but it was certainly it was late into my sort of, like I said, I thought I knew drugs and I knew psychedelics and stuff, so it was kind of late there. But I guess it was around about the time when like Joe Rogan was first sort of talking around it, and that and all DMT really first started coming into the sort of the kind of psychedelic consciousness kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, mate, it was.
Did your brother didn't get you that though? I don't suppose, did he?
No, in fact, it was the other way around. He was interested in trying it, so I got it first to sort of try it out because I knew there was some kind of technique involved in it, so I wanted to pin that down. But I was going. I was going to go and meet my brother for, I can't remember if it was his birthday or something like that, and he wanted to try it, but I was sort of testing it out for him. And he tried it out, and he was kind of stepped away from it. He was like, it's too much. Don't want to go there again. I've seen a few people have that, like a lot of my friends had that reaction where, they kind of had this experience where it was like they acknowledge how it's amazing and it's just mind blowing, but it's just, they weren't up for going back to it.
Do you think, in hindsight, here's a question for you. Mm-hmm. Do you think, in hindsight, if these people who were freaked out by it the first time they tried it, do you think if they used something, a more modern vaping tool, like we were talking about the C-cell palm or some other vaping system like that was a bit more gentle, and they took it easier, do you think they might have been freaked out as easily, or might have been tempted to try a little bit more? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, we could get into the e-meshing, because I mean that I think is definitely a game changer. And I've just seen a couple of comments, and one in particular from someone very dear to me. The missus is there in the channel saying, Minty, she's tried your vape method and it was awesome, thank you. And so this is from Rachel. Well, she's just tried it this weekend.
Say so, but it's not my e-mesh method, is it?
Well, I think I know it's not yourself who invented it, but I think certainly I've got to give you a lot of credit there, mate, because you were the one who I think really took this from just being another kind of post that was on Reddit, and you really made something of it, which then sort of made me want to make something of it. And I think between the two of us, if it's not to blow our own trumpets, I think we might have started a bit of a revolution here. And
I tell you what. We'll have to go on Dragon's Den and see if we can get a manufacturer. Do you think we could do that? We can practice together. Oh, yes, here we go. Here's the e-mesh. I think it's very good because of this.
I don't know whether...
We get Duncan Bannatyne asking us, well, I think it's very dangerous. I think it shouldn't have this and anything.
Well, we could pass it round here, Duncan. Just suck on that for 10 minutes, and we'll see how you feel about it then. But no, man, I really want to give you like a lot of credit for pushing that, and I think this is one of the things that comes across as like really awesome about your channel, is about that you do have this curiosity, where you will go and try these things, and not only do you try them, you try them to a very sort of a, I don't know what the best word is, but like a technical degree. You really get into the nuts and bolts of these things. Is that because of like something in your career, or are you just naturally curious about that? Or?
Honestly, mate, that's just the way I am. I'm always the guy who, I used to hang around with a round table many years ago, and I was always the guy, we used to go to different things every week. Like 1 week we'd be looking at some music museum, the next week we'd be windsurfing, the week after that we'd be looking at some rock gem museum. I was always the guy who always wanted to go to the same thing every single week and never want to move on, because I was like, hang about, let me, and all this kind of thing. And it wasn't like that. So yeah, it's just me. But I will say though that I had no idea at all that eMesh video was going to have as many views. I forget. I think it might have. I don't know how many views it's got now, but it's over 10,000. Mm-hmm. When I first made it, I thought I'd be lucky if I get 100 views, literally, because I've played around with YouTube channels before, and like I got like 10, 20 views, if that, and then like 10 of them were mine, and then my son might watch it twice, and there was barely a genuine view. So, and I remember putting out that eMesh video. Don't forget, it was actually. I made it just for you as a demonstration.
Yeah.
Remember, it was unlisted at the time because I had no desire to become like a YouTube fella. And then, obviously, I'm thinking, oh, it's bloody Adeptus. I wish he'd already make a video, so I'll bugger it. I'll just put it out and see what happens. But obviously, your channel's a lot bigger than mine, so my only really concern was like just getting it out to a few more people. Because I tell you now, I was used to the machine, and I still think the machine's an absolutely brilliant device, but when I couldn't believe it the first time I tried the eMesh. I got it straight out of the box, put it together, put 15 milligrams on it, and just basically had a toke. And I thought, oh, it's not worked properly. And I was thinking, I couldn't feel anything in my throat. I thought, that's weird. I could have sworn it was all set up, but I was holding it just in case. And I started twiddling with the buttons on the mod box, and the thing just burst into a massive colours. Yeah. And I thought, oh my God. So I lay back and I had this most beautiful, crisp, clean strip full of most beautiful blue and purple visuals. I'll never forget that. It was I couldn't believe it. I thought, did I really only just load that with 15 milligrams? Is that all?
Yeah, I think I had the same experience, because I was sort of setting it up and testing it. I was doing a little bit and like, okay, that didn't work. Did another bit, okay, that didn't work. And then I realized I had one of the settings wrong. I did it, and just really cavalierly, like I totally forgotten that this thing had like the most powerful psychedelic in the world. Yeah. And so I just sucked on it. And just like you described, and the world just went, just scattered into prisms. And the thought that just went through my head was like, oh fuck, I wasn't ready for this. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And but anyway, I settled into it and just absolutely tripped my nuts off. And same thing, I just looked, I was like, wow. And that was off a tiny amount. I think that was like 10, 15. And I was like, okay, I think I've got the settings dialed in now.
But I mean, having said that, let's be fair. There are some people who've not had success with it. They've had trouble in getting it working, and because I've kind of like, you don't really know. I've had some comments saying how good it is, but I've had quite a few comments saying, "Oh, I can't get it working," and I've got to be honest with you. I went through about a 3-month phase of getting within a millimetre of pulling the video. I thought, I can't have this because I don't really know. There's some problem with it that I don't know what it's about. Now, I could not get mine to fail. I tried everything. So I thought to myself, well, what I'll do, I got the idea of joining a trip, actually, joining a DMT trip. Mm-hmm. I thought, I'll just make an update video and get it out, just make the best job I can and just get it out. But since then, I've been answering, obviously, a lot of queries on Reddit and also by YouTube and all the rest of it. But it does seem as though we've found a way around. I'm hoping now that like the vast majority of people have managed to get theirs working, at least if not in temperature control modes, in the fixed wattage that I spent a fair bit of time correcting. Yeah. Oh, another thing is, I don't know if you've done this, Rob, but I remember once I had a load of leftover yellow waxy stuff from an extraction. And I thought to myself, oh, there's not a lot in this. And I just spread it like butter on the eMesh. And I went and tripped. And I oh, my goodness. I've never had a trip like it. It was so intense. It was just mental.
So you did not have any idea how much was in it. You just sort of whatever was there, you just threw it on.
And because I was kind of thinking, well, there's bound not. It was left over from actually a recrystallization, so there was almost, I was convinced there was nothing in it. But it's like, I don't know what it is chemically. I'm not an expert, but it just looks like really hard butter. And I imagine this hard butter, if it is that, has got some kind of psychoactive DMT in it. But oh my goodness, it was intense. And I was hearing, I couldn't. It was the music. It sounded like either I can hear the music or not, but I could hear the music. But it's like there was like tearing cloth sounds in it, and it was like the treble was turned right up and the bass was turned right down, and then it was like big gaps in it, and the visuals. It was just like I was at a really intense nightclub. It was just far too much for me, I tell you. Yeah. And yet another time, let me tell you this. I had an RDA delivered through the post the other week. It was a Vandy Vape knockoff from AliExpress.
Right.
And I thought, ooh, wow, I'm breaking all my own rules. I thought, I'll give this a try. So I put a load of, again, I hate to say this, but I was so excited to give it a try. I didn't actually weigh the spice out. I just plopped a load on, dashed into my bedroom, and I've never had an experience like it. It was, I don't know if you've had anything like this. I meant to ask you this, actually. I had a toke. And I thought, oh, that's weird. It's not working. And I could get a taste of WD-40 in it because I just cleaned it with the WD-40. Yeah. I thought I'd dried it out and cleaned it. And anyway, but I could still sort of taste a little bit of it as I was sucking in. And I know it's not recommended this. I'm certainly not advising anybody else to do it. But I was thinking, oh, and it seems to be interfering with the effect of the DMT. And all of a sudden, it was just like there was no heart rate increase, no nervousness. It was almost like all of a sudden, it was just like the reality just dissolved and it was replaced by another reality. And it kind of lasted about 10 seconds and then it was back again. It was really weird. So, I don't know what happened there.
There's some added element from the WD-40.
I don't know. You tell me.
you might crack something here. Everyone's going to be selling out at WD-40 now. Trying.
I don't want to start any recommendations like that, at all, because it's not a recommendation. I definitely would not try it again. And it's probably just coincidence. But it was a bit of a funny coincidence.
I'm just going to give a shout out to the bearded one who's put a super chat in there. Says hi Minty and Rob. So hi to the bearded one, and in fact hi to all these guys. I'll just do a quick rundown.
Oh yeah, hi matey. Hi, how are you doing? I'm not.
So let's
speak to bearded one quite a bit on the Reddit chat.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you do get you get all these sort of people and the sort of the names. You start like you find your regulars and people that you sort of you build a relationship with through this thing. And I think this is the cool thing about this whole kind of Psychonaut community thing. But I'll just do a quick.
Just to those folks commenting, I can't actually see Skype. I can't actually see the YouTube comments. All I can see is the Skype. So
I'll run through the comments and questions in a minute. But I did just want to ask you, mate. I've got a few things I want to ask you. What was it about the e-mesh that made you? Because I mean, there's so many things that get sort of evangelized.
Yeah,
on stuff
I can
like
tell you
Reddit.
now, mate. I can tell you now exactly what it was. Do you remember when you had Dick Kahn on?
Yep.
And if you remember, it was me that was nagging you to have him on as well. Because I mean, all right, I don't agree with everything he says, but he's a bloody scream to listen to, isn't he? He really is.
He's a character, definitely a character, yeah.
And he mentioned during your conversation, oh yes, these vaporizers, these electronic vaporizers are so efficient. And I thought, I wonder which one he's on about. And I asked you that, I don't know if you remember, and you didn't know. And I sent a message to him and I didn't receive a reply. So I thought I'd do a bit of research, and that's where I came across the e-mesh.
Right.
And it all sounded good. And we all know there's a lot of hype for various bits and pieces, but this one just had a ring of truth to it, which is how I got into it, you see, how I just ordered the bits and gave it a try. And then I was dead impressed and I let you know about it. So that's how I got into the e-mesh.
Yeah, I mean, everyone does really tend to evangelize their own thing. And that's... I mean, so yeah, it's hard to know sometimes, like which way should I go? There's so many different things, and you can spend a fortune on these things. And for me, I think that was the thing with the e-mesh. I saw that first demo. I think it was one that you sent to me, where the guy just turns it on and it just evaporates within sort of 8 seconds or something like that. And it was that combined with the kind of price point where I thought, okay, I'll take a punt on this now. Plus you were bigging it up. So yeah, it was, and I think it's. Like you said, it is an absolute game changer, and just come back to we sort of started going down this rabbit hole where you're asking, do I think it would change people's perception of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it would a bit, because what I find for myself is that the bit before it really kicks off, that's a bit where I feel most anxious, where it's just coming on and it's a bit sort of, it's, things are going a little bit sort of weird, and there's that kind of feeling of like being extruded out the top of your head kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's a bit where I'm sort of, I wouldn't say like, paranoid or anything, but that's a bit where I'm most uncomfortable, where I'm waiting for it to sort of kick off into something bigger. And when you're doing the kind of like the oil burner method, then you're in that space for a lot longer, because, you're doing these kind of 3-hit things. So I think that something like the e-mesh would, I mean, for me, it certainly helps that, because that bit just is more or less instant. You just go from there to there. And Rachel said the same thing at the weekend. She tried it for the first time.
Oh, does she? What did she think of it then?
I mean, she thought it was fucking amazing. I'm gonna be posting a video on it this weekend of like her first sort of experience, because it's not just her first experience with the e-mesh. It's her first go with DMT in quite a long time.
I was going to ask that, because I forget how I think this, but didn't you say at some point in the past that she was more into the ayahuasca than she was into the straight DMT, or have I got that wrong?
Well, no, it was actually she went more into off ayahuasca, because what she found was that it was sort of, I'm probably going to use the wrong word for this, but kind of it was triggering her eating disorder. Basically, it was. She got to a point where she realised that she needed to kind of stabilise her sort of psychological outlook, rather than sort of keeping to diving deeper. And we'd just done all these retreats in Peru, and they'd shaken up her sort of bedrock quite a bit. So she wanted just to find a bit of space. So she went away from, she's not done ayahuasca since we last went to Peru, which is before all the whole pandemic thing. And she'd been off DMT. She'd still been doing things like MDMA and San Pedro, which is mescaline. But yeah, this was her kind of first trip back to DMT world, and she absolutely loved it. Yeah, I mean,
wow!
So took some footage of it. We'll be putting that out this weekend with her sort of commentary on it. But yeah,
that'll be good. No, I'm glad she's. I mean, you know what I think it's, if used properly. I mean, for me, it's changed my life, and I mean, I hope it changes her life too. I hope it changes everybody's life.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit, mate. So what's been the big benefit for you then, like sort of in terms of like pre DMT, post DMT? Like, what would you say it's done for you?
In a nutshell, and I know this is going to sound bloody cheesy, but it's taught me what actually love is. It's given me
That's beautiful, mate.
Now, I'm not claiming to be Mr. Love. Well, actually, I am. I'm Minty Love, aren't I? But you know what I mean. I'm not claiming to be perfect, because I'm not. I've got a pretty dirty past, and I'm just trying to do what's right. And it's kind of like DMT has shown me that it's just shown me what pure love is, and it's just given me something to aim for. And it's given me, if you like, it's given me a purpose in life. And this channel that I've had and the comments I've had from it, whether they've been good or bad, they've kind of like really healed inside me, and it's been really great. And I just, it's been fantastic. For me, it's changed my whole life. And it's like I said to you, I can rabbit. You'll have to stop me, Rob, because I'm going to rabbit on about. In fact, one day I might make a video on what is love. But it's basically, it's so. I mean, I used to think of love was really weak, and that people who were loving were really weak. But it's not. It's kind of like, can you imagine the most awesome thermonuclear bomb? It's like a mere firecracker compared to the power of what proper love can do. And it's just shown me that. So there's only really one way forward for me now. You can't love everybody. If you do, you're wasting your time. If somebody comes at me with a knife or threatens me, obviously I'm not going to love them. I'll take great delight in doing what any man would do. And I don't care whether it's the local vicar down the road saying splendid, splendid on a Sunday afternoon, or whether it's the local ruffian down the road. We've all got a killer within us, but we've also got a loving person as well. And that's what, I don't know, I just kind of like think that's just the way of going. I think it'll change the world in the end. It's why I supported your channel at the start, and it's why I supported a load of other ones too. I kind of think that the underlying message from them all is one of tolerance, respect and love. And that's the message I'm supporting. I always will do to my dying day. And that DMT has really been kind of like the starter for that.
Yeah.
And you know me, I don't just accept any old bullshit. I have to think things through, and they've got to become logical. But there's nothing more logical than this in my mind. It's just kind of like what's been shown me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that come from it is it's a kind of a sense of like personal honesty, and I think that comes across from what you're saying around love. Because it removes that kind of barrier that where you wouldn't necessarily talk about certain things. So like you just talked about sort of like love very like honestly and openly, and I think everyone can sort of could get behind that, because it's what's kind of we all kind of feel it in our own way, and I think
exactly,
and it's kind of enabling that vocabulary and removing the kind of the hang-ups that we have around that vocabulary. And that's that's why I do a similar thing in my videos, where I'll people will say to me, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but they'll say, oh, you're very brave for like talking about like this thing with your mum. And I'm like, I'm not. It's just what's going on with me, and I'm just telling you. That's it. I'm not trying to pull on your heartstrings or I'm just this to me is just my life. This is today. So I'm telling you what's going on, and in as honest a way as possible. And I'm just trying to make a connection with people by doing that. And I think that's what comes across. And I've got to say, mate, there was one of your videos where you were talking about love, and you were talking about sort of seeing Mrs. Minty through a new way, and it was beautiful, mate. It was such a
Christ, that was powerful. I've had that loads of. Do you know I went through? Sorry, I've interrupted you. Carry on.
No, mate, go for it.
I had honestly those God experiences. That's what's that first God experience. Honestly, I wasn't. I don't mind admitting, for about 2 weeks after that, I was a complete wreck. All I could do was basically go. I just couldn't keep the tears inside my eyes. They were going all over the place. I was like, I just couldn't think straight. It was just like people in the supermarket. I was thinking, oh, you're such a wonderful guy and all that. I didn't have it just with Mrs. Minty. I had it with loads of people. But with Mrs. Minty, I just couldn't believe it. It was like, up till that point, she was just my wife. She was a bit of a pain because she burnt me toast, or she flushed the chain in the middle of the night and woke me up, or she left the door open and it was drafty. But after that point, oh my God, it was just like I was married to an angel from heaven. I just couldn't believe it. You just could see every single bit of her personality. Why she bought rings, or why she swept the floor, or why she, and all she was just like just a pure angel of love, it seemed. And all she wanted was just for me to be happy and give her a bit of love back. And honestly, it just totally blew. I felt like a piece of shite for, I don't know, not mistreating her, but just not treating her with the kind of respect.
Yeah, it's just like you become it's sad, but you become oblivious to these things, and I think that is the beauty of these kind of substances, is that they do just give you that kick in the ass where you really sort of can look at your loved ones and just think, oh my God, like if I've shown you all the gratitude in the world, it's not enough. There's like and you just you want to just sort of treat them like the sort of like slice of divinity that they are. And I had this at the weekend with Rachel, because we were sort of tripping on mushrooms. I was just looking at her and she was just a goddess to me. I was like, it's
no,
and it just brings it out to you.
When you're in the DMT realm, when you look back on your life, and doesn't it look different? All your friends, your enemies, you see them. Oh, I'll tell you another one, which I'm not trying to steal your show, by the way.
It's our show, mate. It's our show.
You've got me carried away now, mate. I tell you.
Go for it.
Here's another one. I'll tell you. Now, this could be all bollocks, right? But I'll tell you what happened. My missus ordered a ring off eBay. It was only a cheapy ring. I think it was about 15 quid. It was a second-hand ring off eBay, and it was a bit late. And I was a bit annoyed because I was thinking, oh my God, we've ordered this ring. Where the heck is it? But that night I was tripping. Now, again, I don't know where this came from, but it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in my life. It just blew me away. And again, I'm not commenting on this and saying it's genuine, but this is what was shown to me. And it was like I was a girl and I was looking at the ring that she'd bought, but I was not my wife. I was this girl looking at this ring, and I was utterly heartbroken. And now, if that's genuine, the heartbreak for a woman is much worse than heartbreak for a man. If it's what genuine, like for me, when heartbreak in the past, it's a bit like you've fallen off a cliff. It just hurts and that's it. But what this girl was feeling, if it's genuine, it was like much more kind of like granular than that. And this ring was a symbol of, she'd broken off an engagement and she was selling the ring on eBay, but actually putting the ring in the envelope and sending it to us was kind of like the final nail in the coffin of her dreams with this chap. Now again, it hurts so badly. I just couldn't wait to sort of ring her up, or send him an eBay message saying, look, we don't want the ring, you're all right and all that, because I felt so bad about it. But it might have been completely false. And I told my missus the next day, I said, you know what? I said, I don't know if you're going to get that ring, because I just told her, about it. I said, look, I've told her about the trip I'd had. I said, I don't know if it's genuine, but this is what I'm having, and I'm not going to chase it up if this is right. But have you had anything like that? It was mind-blowingly intensive. It really was heartbreaking.
I don't think I've had it like that quite as personal as what you have. I've certainly had it for things where I've there's one where I kind of referenced in one of my tripping videos where it was this. There was a song that sort of me and Rachel played a lot when where we sort of done tripping. It was this kind of prayer that these orphan kids in Nepal. So these were orphans, and they're in this orphanage.
Oh yeah, and you sent me the video on that. There's a video made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Tashi and the monk.
That's it. That's the one.
And Jesus Christ, I heard that, and I just thought these kids singing this song to this kind of like the spirit of mother, and they've not got a mother, and they're in the most hostile environment on the fucking planet, in the mountains of Nepal. And still they're just singing this beautiful song, and my fucking heart broke. I got straight on made a donation to that charity. Yeah. I've made like several donations. I keep going back and checking and seeing what's going on at that place. So that's probably
very, very powerful documentary, that one, isn't it? It really is. I sent that one around my family, and they also, they loved it, and I'm sure. That got a few donations too.
Yeah, well, I'll give a shout out if anybody does want. If anyone's looking for a good cause to donate to, check out. It's called Jamsi Gamal Orphanage in Nepal, or check out or do a search for the documentary. It's free online. It's called Tashi and the Monk. It'll break your fucking heart.
It broke my heart in several pieces. Yeah, it was an amazing documentary. In
fact, I'm just going to give out a few shout outs to a few super chats here. So one from Zoltan Samori, thanks for that, mate, and from Dimitro Kostiak and Marie Ramos. Thanks so much for super chats. And do you know what? In the spirit of this, I'm going to donate all these super chats. Anything that comes in through Choose Super Chat, I'm going to donate to Jamsi Gamal Orphanage. So thanks a lot for that, guys. And
what a star!
Know that it's all going to a good place. Also, I've just noticed there's a comment in here from May Howley for you to say, Mr. Minty, you have a beautiful soul. So there you go, mate.
Well, let me respond to that. Thank you for the compliment, but I can tell you now, and all I'm doing is trying as much as I can to bring a bucket full of love back from DMT realms. It's like a bucket brigade. I'm just trying to funnel as much as I can back. I don't know if I am a really loving person, but that's what I'm trying to do. So, and I will continue doing that. You just get that drowned in this love. If you get into the right sort of realm, it's really, really, really mind-blowing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've got a few more things that I want to ask you about. Let me just run through some of it, because I see people are filling up the comments with some questions and stuff. So let me just go through some of these. So Ava Stratton's asking about salvia. Is that something you've ever tried, mate?
No, I haven't. No. I wou't mind trying it, but I've seen all these scary videos where people flipping out on it and going berserk. And
yeah, that's always put me off a bit. It seems a bit wackier. I don't know, a bit. I'm not sure if it's got the same utility that something like DMT, but I don't know if that's just my own sort of prejudices against it, because I've never tried it myself, and I keep up in an iron over it.
It'd be nice to try the leaves. I don't want this 5,000 times extract or whatever you get from it. Just the leaves would be fine just to start off with. Plus, if I'm going to try anything else, I'm going to have to have enough so I can work up slowly and not just dive in there straight away.
Yeah, there's a really good comment here from Mr. Willis. I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate drugs on winning the war on drugs. It's a good one, mate. From Amy T. Rob said he first tried LSD at 14. My own son is about to turn 16. I can't imagine him tripping at this age. He's so immature. I just want to be clear on that. I definitely would say I probably tried LSD too young. I'm not recommending that anyone tries it at 14. And as I say, it was just more that I blame my big brother. He passed it to me and just said, do that. And I did what any sort of stupid younger brother did and just took it. But I'm in a similar situation. I mean, my kids are coming up to that sort of age now, and so now I'm kind of thinking, yeah, well, okay, where is my money where my mouth is? What happens when my kids start, investigating these things as they no doubt will? And yeah, I guess it's one of those things I'll just have to cross the bridge when they come to it. But I think it's almost one of those things.
Interested? Do you think your kids would? I mean, if you said to them, look, right then, lads, or right then, whoever they are, here's some LSD. You can take it or not. You can go off in your room for 6 hours or whatever. What would they do? Would they say, "Oh no, thanks, Dad, I'll leave it"? Or what would they do?
My daughter, my oldest, she would outright reject it just because she rejects anything that I like. So she cannot stand me talking about psychedelics. It is the surest way for me and my daughter to have an argument. And she will. That's always like her go-to thing. Like if she wants to try and piss me off, if we're having it, she'll like, it's stupid psychedelics, this ayahuasca stuff, bullshit, like, and so yeah, she's rejecting it just because I like it. My son he's a few years younger, and he's sort of voiced a bit of curiosity about it, and he's actually said, I mean, I think he's at an age where he's too young to know what he's actually sort of saying in that regard, but he's saying like, would I be able to come on like an ayahuasca retreat with you one day? I'm like, yeah, sure. I would love to do that because just like you were just talking about, like this expression of love for Mrs. Minty, to be able to have that with your child, I think is I mean, it would be. I think you'd have to be at a place in your relationship where you could handle it, because there's a point where you've got to be the parent, and then there's a point where you want to then have like an adult relationship with your kid. You want to be seen as kind of as equals. And so I think at that point, when like my kids were like got to like 18 or something, I think that would be the point that I could handle that boundary dissolving relationship. But I think the reality is they'll probably try things without me a lot sooner than they will do with me, and I just hope I'm sort of ready to deal with it when that happens. But we'll see. I've got a comment here from Derek. He says, "Afternoon, Rob and Minty. First, just want to express my gratitude for all your time and effort you put into your videos. They've been a massive help for me along my journey." So,
great. That's nice. Thanks, Derek.
I think that's probably like, for me, like these are the biggest compliments that we can get for somebody who makes this kind of content. When someone comes back to me and says it's helped them, I mean that's what more could you want?
Comments on my YouTube videos, and he always puts some really, really nice stuff just like that. So thanks, Derek. You're much appreciated.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody. I think all you guys who kind of supported sort of me and Minty through this. It's I've had sort of comments and messages that I would have never dreamed of getting. And it's so rewarding to hear when someone says
definitely,
or even when someone just takes that time to reach out and say it's been helpful. So thanks so much, guys, and it's I think I probably speak for both of us, mate. I think it's our pleasure to be able to provide that service. Right?
I would even go further than that myself, Rob. I would say that, to be honest with you, this is the kind of thing that really makes me make videos. I think without these comments, I don't think I'd make it, because that's just where I'm coming from. I just wouldn't really, I just don't think I'd really bother making videos if nobody really sort of, took the trouble to say, oh, that was useful, blah, blah, blah. It just, what's the point?
Yeah. I think I'm because I've always liked the video making aspect of it, and I think that's why I do these kind of silly videos with all these sort of effects and stuff like that. So those are kind of really for me, and I think I'd do them sort of regardless, just because I like playing around with the technology kind of thing. But for sure, when someone comes back to it like a story where I was like, holy shit, I didn't realize I was having that kind of effect. It's
it's mind blowing, isn't it?
It really is, mate. Yeah. Let's have a look. So it's from Max, dude, why are you not more popular in the Psychonauts community? I don't know. I think I'll answer that question first from my side. I think it's probably because I swear, like I use swear words like punctuation, and so I think like the YouTube filtering doesn't promote it as much as it does some of the more family friendly stuff. And also, I think it is because I think there's always going to be a bigger audience for the people who tell people the stuff they want to hear. Which does tend to gravitate towards the woo-woo stuff. People. It does though, doesn't it, mate? I mean, I think you spent it as much time on Reddit and stuff like it as I have, and you see that, like, someone can go and just say something completely bananas, and everyone will just go cuckoo over it, like as though it's the most profound thing ever. And this, I think me and you are more like the grumpy old Psychonauts, like, not too sure about that. So Geordie Mills says, a post on Reddit, you mean Nexus? Well, I'd say probably Reddit. I mean, I don't tend to go on DMT Nexus too much. I do a lot of my sort of information find on Reddit. But what about you, Minty? Where did you do sort of most of your information gathering?
Well, in the early days, I hadn't really heard of Reddit, so I just used YouTube, and I think a little bit on the Nexus, but I didn't. I just kind of like, I definitely should have done more research, definitely. So I couldn't find anything out on this MAO. That's something I'll have to ask you about and bully you into. But I couldn't find anything about this MAOI and vape DMT. So I kind of had to do all that all by trial and error, really. And as I said many times, it was far more error than it was trial. That's
No, I've not seen as much kind of evangelizing of that. From what I saw, it was always kind of like vape DMT and then ayahuasca. And I don't think anyone has quite got behind the smoked MAO, taking the MAOI and then smoking it as much as you have. And I'm still lagging behind a bit here, just because I've done a couple of attempts of it and they've not gone anywhere. And this kind of it ties back into what I was saying earlier about that anxiety around being in the kind of the halfway states, because I tried the MAOI. I took the MAOI and I clearly just didn't take enough Syrian rue. And so I was chugging away on the Palm C cell, and because it was just coming, it was such a drip feed, and then it was just going straight out again. I was just like stuck in that not quite getting there phase, and it wasn't. It kind of like put me off for a while.
Oh, right.
And so, but I am definitely meaning to sort of get back to it, and I think what I'm just going to do is just stick with my kind of farm ayahuasca doses of Syrian rue, which is like 2.5-3 gram of it. And then sort of go from there.
Well, it's not going to suit everybody anyway. I mean, if it doesn't suit you, that's totally fine.
I think it'll suit me once I get there, because I mean, this is one of the things I love about sort of DMT and I love about ayahuasca is the sort of when you get there and you're just in this complete alternate reality, and it's just and I mean that's the transcendent, indescribable stuff. It's kind of like it's one of the reasons that we do these things, because you want to have that experience that is beyond your normal waking experience. So I think once I get there, I think I'll be into it as much as I'm into ayahuasca. But it's just the kind of getting there. I'm struggling, and also it's a bit more of a time commitment with all the MAOI stuff and.
I understand that. Are you taking any medications that would make that more tricky?
Well, this is the kind of thing you don't know. So I do take medications. I take medications for my epilepsy, and I take sort of, sometimes I take like quite strong painkillers for my back pain and stuff. So
there may be some perhaps unknown interaction, possibly.
Yeah, well, it's certainly something whereby I wouldn't want to roll those dice. So, like, if I go on an ayahuasca retreat, then I come off all my medications, and I kind of. Certainly run the risk of my epilepsy being more of a problem, but I'd rather that than risk sort of some kind of interaction. And because there's so many medications, and because things like MAOIs are a bit of an there's no guarantees what will or won't have the interactions, particularly when it is something like epilepsy medication, which is designed to have an effect on your brain anyway. So it's So for me, I try and like dial it down a bit. I certainly, I don't. It's not like weeks or anything that I come off it, but I do like to sort of be off things for a few days before doing it. So but I'll definitely. I'm going to make some time for.
Well, obviously, don't. It's not sacred. Don't push it if it's going to. Obviously, it's not. It's not. All of these things are not going to suit everybody, are they? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had a few folks get in contact to say that it's really good, blah blah blah, but it's just about finding your own way forward. And you don't, you're a big boy now. You don't need to tell me. You don't need me to tell you how to do that, do you?
Well, I'm intrigued just by the idea of being able to have that kind of. I mean, you've referred to it as the God experience, and I mean, I've certainly had that kind of experience. I've had it on ayahuasca and a few of them on mushrooms. So I think there's some overlap between these things.
Yeah.
But the idea of being able to get that kind of the thing I like most about ayahuasca and get it in this kind of shorter, obviously being able to do it here in the comfort of my own home, it sounds very appealing. Actually, that reminds me, I did want to ask you, because this is one thing that popped up when I was talking to Dick Kahn, and I know that he's kind of gone there since. So when I was talking to Dick, he was at that time, he referred to having a pipe full of 5-MeO DMT on his mantelpiece, which he was building up to. And I wondered, is that something that you'd sort of, is that something you're curious about, or do you think you end up going there?
Definitely. I would love to try it, but again, as I said before, I'm the kind of guy that would need enough so that I could build up the doses slowly. I wouldn't want to just buy, say, one dose off the web or the dark web or whatever it is, and try it. And, I'd need enough, which is going to be expensive. And there's also a supply problem. I don't know where I can get it. Now, that's not an invitation to get bombarded with offers. I'm not trying to source. But I have had a guy chat on one of the chats telling me where I could get it. But sadly, a lot of them don't seem to import to UK anymore.
Yeah, it's like, so here in Switzerland, I could mail order it completely legally. It came through customs and everything. So there's absolutely. But yeah, I know that in the UK it's as controlled as normal DMT is. And I think maybe that's just a thing that maybe they've not caught up here in Europe or whatever, and they've not realised the connection. But yeah, I just went online, can order it as like a research chem, and pop through the mail.
Yeah, I mean, I can see. It's funny how I can order the Mimosa Hostilis root bark, but not. I know it's a little bit more illegal, or even I don't even know if MHRB is illegal in the powdered form in the UK. It seems like a grey area, but certainly getting 5-MeO is. You'd have to be a trusted source, obviously, but there again, people assure me it is a trusted source, the one I'm thinking about. But it's just that a look around the web, I can only find what looks like really shady organisations that either are in the UK or claim to deliver to the UK. So that's got the barrier at that at the moment, and it's not something I can make myself either. You can't synthesise 5-MeO in your kitchen like you can.
Yeah, you need like a proper lab for it.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. I will definitely try it when I get a chance. I've heard good things about it. Plus, you only need a small dose, don't you? And I would,
minuscule, mate. It's insane. Like, I did I think 7 milligrams of it, and that was the video I put of that experience where I was I couldn't believe how potent it was.
I'm sure the day will come, but
was there anything there around the kind of, because there is this kind of aura around 5-MeO where it does certainly attract a lot more of the kind of like the bullshit merchants and the stuff like that. Does any of that sort of put you off at all, or?
Well, obviously the best. Yeah, you and I know, and everybody watching knows that the whole community is kind of like. It's a really good community, but there are elements that do give off a bit of the old bullshit. And but we're all quite good at, I think, separating the wheat from the chaff a little bit. So I'd be quite happy. And I guess one of the things, the reason I like my channel is I'd give my viewpoint across, and I'll kind of like give almost like a technical kind of explanation that, people can challenge if they want to. I don't mind that. So with that same view in mind, getting a bit of the 5-MeO and trying it out in my own way and reporting on it would seem really a useful thing to do if I can get hold of it. But again, please don't go sending me loads through if you don't know my address. But I don't really want offers for it yet, because that's a really dodgy thing to do. So please, nobody, don't think that's I'm asking for it. I'm not. It will. I nearly said it will find me. No, it won't, because that doesn't happen, does it, Rob? You've got to look for it yourself. But one day I would decide to look for it and pull out the stops and get it. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, I think it will find you, mate. I think you go down this path and doors open and you find sort of new things pop up. So I think I'm sure you'll come across it at some point.
Sure,
Got a question here from Dimitri Garcia. He says, "Hey guys, I had trouble finding everything for an eMesh setup, so I bought an APX Vault and the bubbler attachment. How are these?" So have you got any? What's obviously you deal a lot more with the kind of the hardware sort of technical details. Have you heard anything about the APX Vault?
Well, as you know, I've got a video on it, the vault compared to the video, and the reason why I wanted to put that video out because there was a lot of hype on Reddit about it was the machine to get the vault. I wasn't sure whether this was true or not, and after my experiences with the PsyTAF, which I was less than impressed with. I thought rather than buy one, I would ask a trusted Redditor, that was Trinick, and we did the interview with that. So my views on it are still not entirely positive, and as such, I'm not going to buy one, so I can't really answer questions on it. But there are plenty of people on Reddit who will give questions on it. I think my view of it is that as a device, it's like if you can get the hang of it and persist with it and make it work, then there's probably not a lot wrong with it. It's just that I don't really want to have to do that. And the people that do persist and get it working, they love it so much and they recommend the whole world to get one. So, but I can't really speak for that device because I don't ever intend to buy one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think it's that thing around, let's say, like evangelizing, where I think, like you just said, as long as you have something that works. I mean, I stuck with the oil burner for years just because I could make that work.
Yeah, same with me, the machine, you know.
Yeah, so if I don't think there's a point whereby, you know, the experience itself is always going to be the same kind of experience. As long as you can get there, then you're going to have that. It's just kind of more about making it sort of easy to get there. So from my side, I'm similar to what you just said. I've got no real desire to now go trying all these different kind of hardware solutions because I found one that works for me. And at some point, maybe I'll be curious enough to try something else. But
yeah, sure. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, if people are enjoying, you know, people have got a technique or they've got their own favourite tools. That's the only real thing that's important. It's a bit like when you go on holiday, do you really worry about whether it's Rolls-Royce or General Electric engines on the aeroplane? I mean, you go on holiday to Ibiza or wherever you go and enjoy it, get yourself a few beers in the suntan and come back and everybody's happy. And it's the same with what tool you're using, I think. Who gives a monkey's bugger what the tool is? As long as you're exploring the realms and bringing the benefits to your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that some tools need a little bit more technique than others. But I mean, you'll understand this. Once you've already got a working tool, like we have the eMesh, and I love the Palm as well. You don't really want to mess around. It's a bit like being used to your favourite restaurant. You don't really want to take a chance on somewhere else, do you? Really, if you know what I mean. That's what I think, anyway.
You know, I totally agree, mate. And the kind of the thing there that's kind of stands out to me, it's like it's about getting there. It's not about how you get there. It's just about getting there. And it's like we said, we get on the plane. It's as long as you get there, it's fine. And that's actually it's a bit of a hippie message, because that came to me the first time I did farm ayahuasca. And I did farm ayahuasca, and I was like, if there is a mother ayahuasca, please don't be upset at me for doing this. You know, I'm just trying to sort of get there in the way that's possible. And it kind of, through the kind of DMT voice, it came to like, what's important is that you get there, not how you get there, just that you get there. I was like, oh, thank you. So, I mean, that's a sort of why I even though I love all the kind of traditional stuff, I don't sort of go down this route of like, this is the only way to do it, because I think it's about partaking in that experience, not necessarily jumping through all the sort of hoops or whatever. But for the people who want to jump through hoops, and then, you know, which I do, then I think there's an experience to be gained there from, you know, going to the rainforest. But it's not like the only way. I think what's important is just seeing what's on the other side of that veil, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So comment here from Miguel Gonzalez on Salvia, saying Salvia is better chewed than smoked, which is, I guess, what you were saying. Yeah, that's the way you would probably try it. And Salvia is lovely. The extracts are OP. However, just smoke the raw leaf. It takes repeated exposure to sensitize it, but it's well worth it. So I think if I come across it, I'd give it a whirl.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like sound advice, that one, doesn't it? To be honest with you, you know. It's not like the YouTube videos you see of these people falling around in the driveways and stuff, is it?
Well, I think that's it. I mean, people.
You know.
It used to be that salvia you could pretty much buy all over the place, and so I think people were just going buying ridiculously strong things and not necessarily knowing what it is they bought, and then you'd see these kids just blowing their minds out on it. So someone's saying, what do you think is a good sort of a good frequency in between trips? I mean, how often is it that you tend to sort of take yourself off to DMT world?
Well, that's actually a really good one, Rob, because what I used to do was I used to limit myself to once a month. or at least a binge once a month. So what I would do is I would leave it a month, and then I would trip myself to death, and I'd scare me. No, normally I'd scare myself, and I'd think, ooh, and I'd leave it a month, and then it'd all happen again. But when I started testing the e-mesh, the palm, that TAF, and then the e-mesh again, and for the latest video, I found I got through like nearly 10 grams of DMT this year. I know. So, but I will say, I mean, just for me alone, I'm not recommending it. It hasn't actually done me any harm. I mean, sure, the patterns in the carpet, I'm looking at the carpet now and I can see patterns in it. And I haven't had any DMT for over a week. Over a week. So there is an effect, but it's not at the end of the world. And what's made it even harder is that I've been working on my fear, because I used to get tripping anxiety and all sorts of fear, but I don't really get that anymore. And that takes away. All I want to do now is trip all the time. So what I'm determined to do now, I think I'm about a week and a couple of days into a break. I'm going to try my very, very best to make that a month again, and then go back to me once a month. But even doing it once a month, I found that the visuals were suffering a bit. They just weren't the same, and I would have to take more. But I was still getting the music enhancement, and I was still getting doing it once a month, I was still getting God experiences. I went through a time last year when I had 6 or 7 God experiences in a row. Every month when I'd be tripped, I would have one. And I kind of thought they were going to go on forever. But that's when I had, the next time after that, that's when I had that scary time stop experience. And after that, I started testing the e-mesh. And since then, I haven't had a God experience. So I'm really looking forward to going out. But to answer the question, for me, once a month is more than enough for an intense binge of, say, 100 milligrams over a couple of nights, something like that. Yeah. And of course, with the MAOIs, it's serious business. So, yeah. But yeah, once a month.
Yeah, I'm about the same. I would say once a month is about my sort of, like what I would aim for, unless I'm doing something like an ayahuasca retreat where then you kind of pack in like four things into a week. But then some months I'll go like, maybe 2 or 3 months without it. And it just depends on the kind of experiences that I've had. Sometimes I just want to take a bit longer to let these things bed in. But when I first got into DMT, I mean, there was a time where I was doing like 3 or 4 times a week. I just went bananas on it when I first found it, because it was just like
Did you find any ill effects when you were doing it, like, several times a week? Was there any ill effects on it at all?
I wouldn't say ill effects would be too strong, but I did notice what I would kind of refer to as like a dullening of it. It was, it's on the one hand, it became, when I was doing it like that, I found it easier. First of all, it became a lot easier to get into that space, and I was a lot braver about doing it. But after a sort of, if I was doing it like back-to-back nights, then there was something kind of, duller about the experience. It started being not quite as vivid. And also, that's when sometimes I just wouldn't be able to break through at all. And right. and there was one time where I had my probably first and only weird experience on DMT, where it wasn't just completely awesome happiness. It kind of glitched out, and it felt like it had gone wrong, and it was only for a minute, but it scared the shit out of me for like it just kind of.
Ooh, what was that then? You'll have to describe that a bit. What was that?
Yeah, so it was the kind of the experience like kicked off, and it was doing all the kind of hyperspace thing, and then this voice in my ear just went as clear as day, just said, "And this is what it looks like when it goes wrong," and it just went boom. And it just glitched out, and like it was like the Matrix had just crashed, and I was just stuck, and I thought it just became one of these moments where it just seemed to stretch out forever, and I was kind of looking at like a broken computer simulation, and I just thought, fuck, this is what happens when you break your brain, and then it just went and just kicked off again, and it all just carried on, and the rest of the experience was awesome. But that one moment of just like, it just haunted me. It really stayed with me. And
it's when things like that happen, where things that you normally take for granted are no longer there, isn't it? That's I find that. I don't think I could resist being scared or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think it's just it was. I interpreted it as it was just kind of showing, because it didn't seem malicious. It was just kind of like saying, hey, just remember, lad, you're not indestructible here. There
Yeah.
is, don't take the piss with this, because there is, there is a flip side to it. And it kind of, that made me like, okay, I'll start spacing these things out a bit more. But I think now that I've sort of done that initial thing of that sort of first exploration where you just go bananas, then these kind of like just dipping into these experiences and sort of getting that taste like once a month or so, that's enough for me now, because it gives me plenty to sort of think about and plenty to.
Does that include mushrooms as well? So are you doing so you won't like touch anything in between, kind of thing?
It's not super strict. So I mean, if it's just more of a sort of a guideline, but I would say like one psychedelic experience per month. I'm probably about to break that rule, because I did mushrooms this last weekend, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing DMT this weekend, because we're doing like a social thing. So it's not set in stone or anything like that.
Yeah. I find chatting about it now, I just want to dash for my blinking stash and guess. I think, I've had a chat to Rob tonight, and doesn't that entitle me for another DMT trip tonight? Almost, See what I mean? I'm looking for excuses all the time. Almost like, I'm gonna have to get out of this habit. It's.
Well, it does do that whenever I see something where I see somebody else have like a really positive experience on it, and it reminds me like, oh God, this is like. Somehow you can forget the awesomeness within this experience, and it ties back into what you were just saying about anxiety before, because I know you've got a video about this in the works, about your own sort of.
Well, it's actually published now. I published it about 2 hours ago.
Oh, awesome! Right, so
3 hours ago.
Everyone go and check that out. So I had a bit of a. Have you changed anything since the preview that you showed me?
Well, the audio is the same. I sent, just in case anybody's listening wondering what's going on, I sent Rob a copy of it, or at least the audio of it, just so we could have a sort of pre-look, just in case anybody was asking questions about it on this show, as it were. So no, it's the same audio, but it's just I've filled in a few more of the gaps with things to watch.
Yeah, and I think there's some really great advice in there, because I'd say that's one of the questions that pop up to me the most is, what's referred to as pre-flight jitters, like this anxiety that people start feeling. I think before most psychedelic experiences, but I think it goes up another level with DMT, or at least it does for me. I find it easier to drink ayahuasca than I do DMT. There's just something about. I think maybe it was connected to that whole oil burner pipe thing, because it was a bit of an ordeal to do that, and so to sort of to nicely look around. I think that's maybe the vaping tools really help there. But also, you come up with some sort of great advice for externalizing this anxiety, what you refer to as the monkey. And where did you come? Where did you come up with that from?
Well, I'd heard about it on one of these. I forget what it was now. I heard about it on another video. Like I think we've all got our monkeys. Like, for example, just to explain to anybody who's not actually seen the video yet, is when you lead going up to a trip. I know what I do is I know I'm going to trip that day. I have this voice inside me saying, "Oh, you're going to have a bad trip, and you're going to get HPPD, you're going to get arrested, and the police are going to find out, and you're going to die of fright and all this." Now, I call that voice the fear monkey. Now, I think we've all got our monkeys, to be honest with you. Like my Mrs. Minty, she's got the BO monkey, and it's always saying, "Hey, Mrs. Minty, you've got BO, go and have a shower," which kind of explains why she has about 5 showers in a day. And look, some people have a fat belly monkey, don't they, as well? Saying, they're walking down the street, the monkey's sitting on the shoulder saying, "Oh, you've got a disgusting fat belly." Everybody's looking at it. And everybody's got their own monkeys. Mm-hmm. So, but my monkey I was talking about was the fear monkey. And he was, on the day of the trip, oh my goodness, not, no pun intended, but he was going absolutely bananas by saying all these horrendous things. And I was like, it would always happen. I'd be freaking myself out thinking, oh my God, and I'd be trying to invent an excuse not to trip and to put it off, and and I'd very often succeed. I say, "Oh, I'll leave it for tonight because I've just found a pen on the floor," or something really trivial, But what I do now is what I found with a few things with the monkey. First of all, I just give him a job. I've made friends with him, and I just give him a job. So I get him going through my pre-tripping checklist. Have I charged up my headphones? Is the batteries out the doorbell. Is it going to be a good night? There's not going to be the wind rattling the door and stuff like that. So I'll have him going through the checklist like that. And I've found that he's not really that bright, my fear monkey. So what I do is I say to him, so in other words, I'm telling myself, look, I'm only going to have a really small threshold dose tonight. So all the day, I'll be saying, I'm only going to have a threshold dose. There's no point in being nervous. Yeah. But actually, at the last minute, that changes, and you just have whatever you want. The strategy changes. You just say, well, this is going really well. I know, I'll just have one more toke. And then after you've had that, I say, all right, I'll just have one more toke. So you just kind of do it like that. And basically, you fool your fear monkey into, helping you along instead of getting in the way.
Yeah,
so that was one strategy.
Yeah, I thought it was great, right? Like just this externalizing of it. And I think, that's... I think I've certainly done similar things when I've been on like ayahuasca retreats and stuff like that. So before I go to sort of go into the Mallorca to sort of drink, then I always sort of like have this kind of routine of like, right, go and get a shower, put on your sort of tripping outfit, make sure that, and you give yourself all these jobs to do that just takes your mind off it. And I think some people can do this as well, just with sort of meditating and stuff like that. But I think just by keeping, like I say, keeping the monkey busy, then... Yeah, it sort of it just stops you from going down a hole, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there, actually, when you said meditation, because my view is, like when you meditate, one form of meditation is like when you concentrate on your breathing or a mantra. I think that's you're just telling your monkey to concentrate on your breathing or your mantra. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just a variation on that, I guess.
I mean, meditation is just focus. That's what it is. It's focus on breathing or focus on this mantra, and I think what you're doing is focus on. Like I said, these tasks that need to be done, and to just sort of stop yourself that fear just overwhelming you. Because I've done exactly what you've described. I've had times where I was so set that I was going to do this experience, and then just talk myself out of it for just absolutely looking for any possible way. Like, I've stubbed my toe, or
any old reason, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just It's sort of complete bullshit, but it's such a powerful sort of anxiety. What do you reckon that is? Do you sort of buy into the kind of this is because you kind of it's your ego afraid of sort of death kind of thing, or?
No, I think I get exactly the same if I'm going to the dentist. I get the dentist monkey saying, "Oh, he's going to drill a hole in your mouth and you're going to die," and all this. So, but to be honest with you, I can master the tripping fear a lot easier than any other fear. I don't know why that is, but to me, the monkey works really well when it comes, maybe because I know for sure it's pretty safe. I mean, obviously there are times when you have to listen to your concerns. So if you've got a heart problem or any kind of medical issues, or maybe a mental health, then you've got to listen to your fear monkey then, I guess. But for the normal kind of like everyday trips, you've made the decision to trip. Also, another thing I find, Rob, is that I don't know what you think of this, but I think perhaps sometimes newcomers to DMT might get the wrong idea of what tripping's all about, and they think all they have to do is learn a good vaping technique and they're away. But of course, there's more to it than that. I'm a big advocate in taking things in bite-sized chunks, very small steps. And you hear on Reddit saying, "Oh no, it's much better if you just take a huge dose at the start." I'm not really sure I subscribe to that. I know some people think that's a good idea, but I mean, I can't think of a worse way to get into DMT rather than just going having a breakthrough dose. I don't know way I'd recommend that.
I think it's one of those things where it's just whatever sort of people feel sort of right from. Because, I mean, I think I had a fairly steady progression through things like sort of, LSD through to sort of mushrooms through to sort of, high dose of mushrooms through to high dose of LSD through to, DMT. So I my sort of curve through psychedelia is kind of like this. But I've seen people jump straight in at things like 5-MeO DMT, which I think why would you? I don't know. That just seems a bit extreme to me. But I've got my own biases here. But I think I don't know. Some people just feel that call. I mean, I've been on ayahuasca retreats with people who've never done a psychedelic in their life and are now in the middle of the jungle doing this incredibly potent sort of brew. And I'm sort of thinking, Jesus Christ, braver than me. But I think people just find their own sort of what works for them. So a question here that's probably a good one for you, from Schnapps. How does an e-mesh compare to the machine? Because I never did the machine. I was always the oil burner, but I know you're a big fan. So where would you put those on the scale?
Yeah, I love the machine. I got 2 years really good tripping out of it. But the one thing I did find with it was I could never get the dose to within predictable limits. So sometimes I'd mess it up and I'd get a really like I'd be just like going down for the night. I think right, I'd be MAOI. I'd tripped a couple of times and then I'd just think to myself, oh, there's a good track just come on the headphones. I know. I'll just have that last tiny bit that's in the machine and end up getting blasted so much I just couldn't even hear the music because it would be a bit unpredictable. But I'm not knocking the machine at all, and I owe an awful lot to the machine. And in some ways, I do prefer the machine to eMesh, but only in a certain way. And the way is this. With the machine, I used to load it up with about 100, 240 milligrams and just smoke it or vape it over a few nights. Because with the machine, you can just vape as much as you want or as little as you want. And you can just leave it on the bedside or wherever you want. And for a few weeks if you want, and just vape it till it's gone. Whereas with the machine, you load it up and you vape it, and it's extremely efficient, as Rob will attest to, and in fact anybody listening will attest to. But once it's gone, you have to load it again, and it's a bit of a faff to load, as you know. In the night time, you get up and you bang indoors, and you get your little stick out, and it's just a bit of a faff. So there is that. But I still say that for sheer efficiency, for me, the eMesh, if it's working properly and it's you've got it going, and a lot of people seem to have done, I just don't think you can beat it. I mean, all right, if you can, let me know. But and I will invest. Here's the challenge: if somebody can think of a better, more efficient tool than the eMesh, let me know, and I'll do a video about it. Here we go again. I told you I did this before, and I'll nag Rob into making one. And look at you smiling. That means he will.
I definitely. I think the only thing it could be improved on for me is that reloading. I think that's If there was some, I mean, I know there's things you can swap out the physical mesh, but again, that's still a little bit ball achy. But yeah, if there's some, I tried doing the thing with the baskety thing, and that didn't quite work for me.
No, the problem with that is you don't get an even spread of temperature on it. But what I found was, I mean, what I've tried is basically give it a quick press, that putting putting your dose on like a flat dish, and then heat it up the mesh, just resting the mesh gently on it, and you pick up almost all of it from it. There's little tips like that. There's little tips like that you can do. Just get your missus to put the temperature right down. Get your missus to hold the button up or elastic band around it, and just gently scrape it on. It sticks a lot better to a hot mesh or a warm mesh. Not enough to vaporize it, but it melts on as it goes. And little things like that. It just gets easier. Even just having it the right way around. And also I've got a different RDA now, a knockoff Digiflavor, which has an awful lot of room on it, even more than the Vandy vapes. So there's another little tip. They're easily available on AliExpress.
Yeah, because I mean, that was the other thing. A lot of the components that we originally recommended have now sort of disappeared into the ether and are hard to sort of come by.
Yeah, getting very hard to find now, I mean, where... I've just had a few RDAs delivered from AliExpress. I'm not sure. People tell me different things. Is AliExpress accessible from the US? Can somebody say, one of the listeners or the watchers? I don't know. But
I think it is, yeah.
I think it is. Yes, a couple of people said it isn't, so I don't know. But that's where the RDAs are still available. But another thing is, I found a very common problem, it's worth mentioning, is that when you get the RDA, the electrical connections on it are not absolutely perfect. They've got residual manufacturer's gunk on it or whatever. But what I've found with these new ones, and I'm sure it's the case with a lot of the original ones, is try and give it a damn good clean with some kind of lubricating solvent. If you're going to use the WD-40, like I said before, make sure it's all cleaned off properly. It will smell of it, and who knows what it's doing to it. But I found that doing that and polishing everything, cleaning everything, making sure you don't lose the bits, of course, it just works wonders for the temperature control. It gets the resistance down, gets the wattages stable. It's well worth doing for any new RDA. So we're just learning as we go, really, aren't we? It's a new kind of thing, isn't it, really?
Well, exactly, man. That's like the cool thing about this community is that we can all find new things, and we can all sort of send each other stuff and find work out what's best as we go along.
Here's another one for you, Rob, because you've got a bit of a business head on your shoulders, probably a lot more than I have. At what point do you think it'll get where, because eMesh isn't going away overnight, at what point do you think it'll get where we can approach a manufacturer somewhere in China or something and say, we want one of these, we want 1,000 units or 5,000 units, what can you make this for? What do you think of that? Is it going to be doable in the future?
I think it's probably doable now, man. I have toyed with the idea a bit, and I think, I mean, there's that certain project which you and I came across recently, which is kind of going in that direction, and I think,
Yeah.
so it kind of, I don't want to say too much about that thing because that's probably a different conversation. But so I think there is a place whereby you could, approach these manufacturers and have something kind of made under a certain sort of brand, and I'm like, yeah, okay, is this something that we do? Because it's I mean, there's clearly a market for it.
Oh yeah, and we could get it made to our own specs as well. I mean, what's coming across from what I've been going, I've got my own little subreddit now, and people have been responding there. We had all sorts of RDA, but we got like what's coming across is what is ideal, what is workable, and it's. We could put it this way: we could present a manual, or the community could present a good list of specifications for a very workable device, with the proper electrical connections and what's good and what's bad. You get the feeling now the people who are making them just haven't a clue about the importance of good electrical connections and the space on the mesh and all that. I guess for the best will in the world, they're not really designed for what we're using them for, are they, really? But the electrical stuff is the one thing that annoys me the most. I mean, there's no excuse for having tarnished connectors on temperature control devices. It'll totally mess up the temperature control, as we all know.
Well, maybe there's something there. Maybe that's something we need to collaborate on, and maybe it's test the water and see if there's something we can do there. Because I mean, a question for the audience: would you buy the Minty Rob branded e-mesh? Like, if we put something together and it was set up in a certain way and it was guaranteed to work straight out the box, would that be something you guys are interested in? And let us know if it is, and we'll go and approach these people. I've just got to give a shout out to Darren Hook here, who's sent a super chat. He says, "You guys are truly amazing, incredible community. Thank you so much. Much love to all." So thanks a lot for that, Darren.
Cheers,
and as I mentioned, I'll be sending that donation on to Jamsi Gamal Orphanage in Nepal from Tashin the monk. So and I think. Let's just have
These donations are making me feel all pink and fluffy inside, Rob. This is good news, this.
So the show, mate. It's good. It's good that we can sort of, me and you, we're just having a conversation, and if something good can come out of it through other people's generosity, then awesome. What more could you have?
Excellent. I love it.
Indeed. So let's just see if there's any other questions, because I think we're coming to a point where we should probably a good place to wrap this up. But let's see. Oh, there's a good one here, and it's regarding the whole question of let me try. I think of the right word. It's endogenous DMT. So it's basically coming from the kind of the world of breath work and Wim Hof, and I can see there's a few people asking these kind of questions around. Do you think that we have an inbuilt source of DMT which can be triggered via sort of breath work or like Wim Hof exercises or something like that?
Are you asking me that one, Rob, are you?
I am, mate.
Yes. So far, I've yet to see any real evidence that I mean, I've not investigated it because I'm naturally skeptical, but I've yet to see any concrete evidence of it myself. I had a quick go at the kind of techniques that he was talking about, but it didn't do much for me, and it's certainly totally different to a DMT experience. So I'm not knocking it, and it's what I said before. If you found a way that does something for you, then I will cheer and shout it from the rooftops, and I salute you for what you're doing. But for me, I haven't yet found any evidence that this works. It's just too easy to reach for a DMT pipe, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've tried some of these breathwork. I did some breathwork stuff when I was on retreat, and it definitely worked. But for me, it wasn't. I think for people who have these experiences through meditation or through breathwork, I don't think it's the same. I don't think I don't get the need why people need to associate everything to DMT. I think something can happen through breathwork, and I've seen dudes running around, in freezing cold conditions. So I think clearly something can happen through this Wim Hof stuff, but I don't see any reason why people would think that it's related to DMT other than they want it to be. To me, it's its own effect. Call it, it could be oxygen flooding on the brain or whatever. Something that's related to that process that's going on. And I've certainly I would describe it as a psychedelic experience doing breath work, but it's not DMT. It's just not the same thing. I don't see the connection there.
I think you'd probably agree. I think probably most of us would agree is that the Wim Hof, he's probably tapped into something in the human nature, but I'm not quite sure what. And I've got to be honest, I don't really feel the need for that kind of thing myself at the moment. I mean, if he's talking about running up mountains and getting freezing cold and all that, that's definitely not me.
Well, I think it's one of those things where I have all the respect in the world for people who can do that. Just like I've got all the respect for people who climb Mount Everest. And I've no doubt that when you get to the top of Mount Everest or when you go running through the Antarctica in your boxer shorts, that you are going to get to some sort of euphoric state and you've achieved something I think amazing and superhuman there. But it's not for me. I've no desire to do that, and that's not taking anything away from the people who do it. Just like I don't think everyone has the desire to go and sit in the jungle and get off the tits on ayahuasca, and that's fine. It's like different things for different people, and I would say whatever works for you. But I don't I'd say I've always kind of resisted this thing for people to associate everything to being DMT, like dreams are DMT. Wim Hof's DMT, Breathwork's DMT. It's like, no, there are other things going on. I don't think everything needs to be DMT. And if it was that easy, then, I mean, that's the one thing with DMT. We know what it takes to get a psychedelic experience on DMT, and it's a lot of fucking about with vaporizers and fucking stuff. It's not that easy. So, yeah, I just don't get why people are so convinced that there's, 50 milligrams of DMT is just tucked away somewhere in the back of the brain, ready to squirt out after a few breaths. But maybe that's just me being miserable and skeptical. I don't know.
Have I got time for another point, or shall we leave it till the next time, Rob?
No, mate, go on. Go get your last one.
I don't. We might be talking to ourselves. I don't know how many views you've got now, so we might be talking to ourselves in a few minutes at this rate.
No, there's people watching, mate. Go on.
I'll tell you what. I'll raise the question. It could be a big, long talking point, this one, but I often wonder now. I in my own mind, yes, there is indigenous or endogenous. I don't know what the word is, but
endogenous.
Is it all right? Yeah. Endogenous inside the human body.
I think that's definitely true. It's present within us as a neurotransmitter.
So here's the question: if I could suddenly snap my fingers and all that endogenous, whatever you said, DMT suddenly goes, would we feel any different? And if so, how? That I've often wondered about that. Would we find music as good? Would we still find doggies as cute? Would we still? I don't know. Are we going through a psychedelic experience now? But it's just a lot less intensity. That's the question of the night. Well, I don't know the answer to it, but it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Well, I think that's why it is such an interesting, because I think nobody knows the answer to that one, and I think, clearly, our brains are wired up in a way where you can just flick these chemical switches and a completely different way of perceiving reality just happens. And that in itself is just absolute bananas. And I think that's like the wonder of these experiences.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So the nuts and bolts to do that are there anyway. And all it's waiting for is the chemical switch. And it's not... If my understanding, I probably should check with the missus here, because she's more of a neuroscientist than I'll ever be. But the ability to do that is functionally there. The sort of the DMT is basically just enabling that. But the actual what's happening, it's not like your brain has been completely rewired and is now opened up something. It's a chemical switch. So that, I think, is insanely interesting, because that means that we've evolved to... all that stuff is kind of there. I think there's a good thing from Terence McKenna, where he said something along the lines of, the ability to do breakdancing was always there. Like mechanically, we can breakdance, but cavemen weren't breakdancing. So, somebody flicked the switch and started breakdancing, and now people can do all this fucking crazy dancing, which is just looks bananas. But the mechanics were always there, and that's a similar sort of thing with psychedelics and DMT. It's just kind of there waiting to be triggered, and why that is, I think, is fascinating. Like, by what mechanism did this evolve for us to have all this exploding, transforming geometry that just pops out in this kind of sixth sense? It's fuck knows. But and I think that's one of the things where I kind of like the mystery of it a bit more than like sort of... I don't know even know if I want the explanation, because I think the mystery of it is just fantastic, and it's humbling, and it sort of just enables us to sort of, I think, just bask in these experiences. We just feel like pure like wonder at them. So that's my take on it, mate. I don't know if that answers the question.
I tell you, I don't know. I feel like reaching for me pipe, but no. I'm going to wait another 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks. While we're still on the air, I'll just say to everybody who's listening there, thank you very much for the support. Honestly, on my channels and the Reddits and all that, I've just been blown away, and I'm so grateful to every single one of you. I'm so pleased and proud to have you as viewers. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, I'd mirror exactly the same thing, and also to you, Minty, I think it's such a cool time that we live in, where you can sort of make friends like this across the internet, and from our sort of our mutual channels, and then with that we can get together like this and sort of hopefully provide something that's been entertaining for everyone who's watching. So I mean, it's just I think it's an awesome
the donation,
time.
Oh.
Well, exactly, yeah. So it's been an awesome night, and I want to say thanks to everyone who's been watching. Go and check out Minty's latest video on the anxiety monkey. I think it's got some really good advice in there that'll help some of you guys. And yeah, mate, I think this is a good place to call it a night. So thanks a lot, mate, for joining me like this.
Yeah, thanks to you, Rob. Thanks to everybody again who's watching.
And let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, no worries.
All
See you
right,
soon then, matey.
See you soon.